Hey everyone, and welcome to today's video on the channel. For those of you who are familiar with my videos about the Silver Streak in HO scale, you'll recognize these trains right away. Before I get into the whole video, I want to thank everybody who liked, commented, and viewed on my videos relating to this film. Thank you guys so much. I'm glad that it appealed so much, and it was nice commenting back to all of you guys. I just want to thank everybody for that. When I first made that video about the model in 2019, I had planned on making some changes to these engines because while they look pretty close to the ones in the film, there's a couple of little things that I didn't get quite right. Mainly was the horns and the coupling systems, which are the old horn hook style, needed to be updated to the current KD models. And one thing that I didn't realize when I first bought these back then was that this engine is missing its dynamic brake fan, which of course the engine in the movie did have. So knowing what it would have taken to make those changes to these, particularly on cosmetically speaking, I didn't want to risk damaging the locomotive, so I decided to go ahead and just retire these and buy a new set and start over, and which I did in 2020. I don't have those engines to show you because I have recently sold them over the summer in 2022, so I don't have those anymore. But in 2022, I also went ahead and made a new set, which are these ones right here. And this is now the third set that I've made of these diesels, and I think it's the final time. I don't think I'm going to make any more of these. But I think this time I finally got them as close as I can to the engines in the film, because that was always the goal, was to make it as 100% close to the engines in the movies, and I think I finally got it just right. A couple things I wanted to do when making these again for the third time is I wanted to make sure all the details I could get were correct. And while I was on eBay looking for a set of replacement engines, which by the way, every single locomotive I've ever made for the Silver Streak has all been Atlas locomotives, because I think while for the money they're pretty close to the engines in the film, although there are some little things that Atlas doesn't get quite right, I think they look fantastic, and they're also good runners as well, so that's a positive if you're on a budget like I was when I made this. And so getting back to my eBay thing, so I was on eBay and I was looking for a new set of locomotives, and I came across a pair of Pennsylvania Railroad FP7s that the seller had done some cosmetic changes to. And as you can see on these, he added the windshield wipers, the radio antennas, and on the bottom here are the water tanks, which of course the engines in the movie did have. Now my previous iterations of these engines did not have those details, and so when I saw these, I thought, these are perfect. I don't have to make any changes. They're already made. All I got to do is repaint them and decal them. And that's what I did. Now, of course, these engines did come with the original single chime air horns. I went ahead and put the M3Hs on them, and they look a lot better because of that. And and another plus was that these came with updated KD couplers, so I didn't have to do the work. It was already done for me. Now, one thing that is different on these compared to the original two is the decals on these engines did not come from Circus City. These were actually made by a private seller on eBay in 2018 who did a one-off set, and as soon as I saw them, I went ahead and bought them, because at that time it was very hard and very rare to find decals for the Silver Streak to make yourself unless you went ahead and made your own decals. And so I quickly snagged them. And while they were good, they were very, very brittle in terms of the paper quality. And in fact, there's a couple times I had to do this I had to touch these up with paint because they got bumped and scratched, and the decals just brutally fell off. While I did touch it up pretty good, if you looked in certain lightings, you could tell where I did it, and that just bugged me. So so when I went ahead and made these again, I knew I was going to try to avoid those mistakes. And when I went ahead and did these in 2022. Circus City was in existence at that point, and I gotta say, their decals are fantastic. I mean, they look like painted on. They're high quality. I really love what those guys do. So that shout out to Circus City for making high quality decals. You guys are awesome. So these are the engines here as well, and they look pretty good. I'm very happy with how they turned out. One major detail I did have is I did try to paint the grills on the side to have more of a chrome appearance on parts of the outside of the grill, which I did not attempt with these, and that looks better with the little details. But those are the engines. If you look in the back here, you'll notice two engines that were not in the film. Well, this one was anyway. So let me break down with that. So ever since I saw Silver Streak when I was a kid, I always was fascinated with the Canadian Pacific's Action Red scheme that they had. And I always thought to myself when I was making this train that it'd be nice to have a version of the 4070 in a regular revenue service appearance. And since there's not really any models out there that exist other than ones from Rapido, I'm not sure if they ever offered an FP7 in the road number 4070. If it is, I've never seen it. But I know that their engines are very hard to get on the market, especially cheaply anyway. So I went ahead and for the fun of it a couple years ago, in between making these models of these engines, went ahead and bought another Atlas engine and painted up 4070 in her regular CP in-service scheme. And one thing I noticed when I did my research on the pictures of these locomotives was the fact that these engines were often dirty in the photographs I've seen. So I went ahead and added some road dirt to the 4070 and some soot on its roof deck there, and it looks pretty good. Some nice little light weathering. The years that's supposed to represent the engine here is probably from 1973 to 1975, so sometime around before she was in Silver Streak. But there's that engine right there. This one back here, you're probably wondering why I have a switcher engine in the background here. Well, for those of you who remember the movie very well, you remember that towards the climax of the film, right before the runaway train sequence begins, the Patrick McGoohan character Devereaux is killed by an oncoming freight train after his shootout with the FBI. And that freight train was pulled by a Canadian Pacific SW1200RS switcher. And interestingly enough, it was numbered 8100. Now, I recently had a thought about getting a layout put together. I don't have one right now, but eventually I'd like to get one built if I can get a train table and everything. But I'd like to have a double track mainline set up, and I thought it'd be really cool to have this running on one of the tracks, passing the Silver Streak as they both traverse the route, just as a little nod to the film. This engine was made by Athearn. I just got it last week, except it did not look like this when I got it. It was actually all completely red all the way around, except for the trucks. Everything was all red. So I went ahead and repainted the deck black, did the railing in the proper colors. I added the nose stripes on the front because it didn't have any, and I even painted on number boards. I know it doesn't look that great, but it looks pretty good for what it is. And I did some light weathering to the engine as well, and I also even painted the back of it in the stripes because this was also red as well. But it looks pretty good, and it's just I had to buy it when I saw it because the fact that it was numbered 8100, I thought it's kind of rare in nature to find that on eBay. So I was like, all right, I'm going for it, and I think it was worth it. But there's that little switcher engine anyway. Moving on to the consist. Now, this was probably the most change that I made to the whole consist. When I originally made the video, I noted in the video that the passenger consist of the train was a mixed bag of cars. Various brands, such as there was Tycos, there was Concours, there was, I think, probably an Athearn in there, and a couple River Rossis that made up the 8 passenger car consist of this train. And while I was making my second set of AMRoad locomotives in 2020, I started updating my passenger car consist to match because while the cars were all silver, they did not match in terms of look or length. And that kind of, after a while, that kind of started to bother me. And so I want all the cars to match. So I started going through the ones that I had, and I decided which ones do I keep, which ones do I don't. And I found out that the River Rossi branded ones were the closest I could get to the Bud cars that were used in the film. They looked the closest. And so I went ahead and retired 4 of the cars, and I'm sorry, 3. I retired 3 of the cars. And I went ahead and bought 3 other River Rossi passenger cars. And so these are the River Rossis that I have, which I have 6 in total of River Rossi passenger cars. I made some modifications to these that I mentioned in the previous video that I made about I cut off. These all came with side skirts, corrugated sides on the bottom, and I cut those off with an X-Acto knife. And what's neat about these cars is they have underbody detail. So I went and painted some of the details on the tanks and stuff, and it looks pretty good. This is the Wascana dining car here. I actually made one little cosmetic change to this. I actually added a air vent in the an exhaust vent for the kitchen too, because the one in the film had that as well. Nice little nod there. But all these cars look exactly the same, so there's not much to show there. The first car, you'll recognize this. This is a Rapido baggage dorm car that was just released by Rapido. They came in November. I got this, I think it was right before Christmas, or it might have been right after Christmas. It was. It was right before New Year's this year that I got it. And I waited 2 years for this. I ordered it in 2020, and it finally came just a few weeks ago. But I'm excited to have it. It was well worth the wait. I had to buy this car in the CP Action Red scheme because I didn't get my chance to get one that was unpainted. And this one was originally numbered 605 because Rapido didn't offer a baggage dorm number 613 in the CP scheme. So I just, as soon as I got it, I painted over the CP logo, put the silver streak on here, renumbered it to 613, and I also added the barcode, which is also on the locomotives. Now, some of you might ask, well, why did I add the barcode? Well, if you watch the film very closely and look at the stills, you'll notice that the baggage car has a barcode reader right above the number board. And some of these passenger cars in my research, at least the baggage dorms, did have barcode readers. So that was a nice little detail that I stuck on just to keep it as close to the film. And it's really neat. This is a very nicely detailed car. It looks fantastic. And this car was also the main reason why I switched over to KD couplers because the Rapido was going to be having that done, so I knew I was going to have to make the change. The only Rivarossi car I updated to a KD was the Burton Manor car. The rest of these still have horn hooks. Now I'm going to update these because these are real easy to swap out, but I'm just not in a hurry. But I'm definitely going to do that on these at some point. But I had to make the change to this car just so they hook up together. But they look fantastic together. It looks really neat. Moving on to something else as well. So this is a different park car than I had. I had an original park car. This is the only Concours car. This was originally in a Pennsylvania Railroad line car. The original one that I had, I actually sold that. And in case you're wondering what happened to the other cars that I retired, I sold all those off last year to various different people, and I'm hoping that they're enjoying those on their layouts today. I bought another one of these just because I wasn't too happy with the one that I had. I had to make some cosmetic changes to it, and I wasn't happy with it, so I decided to get rid of it, and I got another one. So this is not the original one I had, but this one looks a lot better and looks real nice for Kilkenny Park. But moving on from the train consist, so I mentioned a few minutes ago that I wanted to get myself a train table layout, and I eventually want to have a train station and everything, but I wanted to include some of these. I'm sure you all recognize the red Jaguar, which is the car that Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor steal at the midpoint of the film when they're going to Kansas City. I've had this car since I was a little kid. I remember seeing it a long time ago in a 5-pack with other cars, and I only got it just because of the Jag, because I always wanted a Jag for a future Silver Streak train set that I was gonna do. So I had this planned in my mind a long time ago. But I've had this Jag for a long time. It's always been sitting in a box just waiting for the right train layout to be on, but there's that. I also wanted at some point on this layout to have a couple cars that were seen in the shootout scene of the movie, which is these are all going to be federal agent cars, the Plymouth Fury, a Dodge Coronet, and a police car. I got this one because it says Chicago Police. This is actually from Blues Brothers. I just thought it said Chicago Police, so in my mind, this would be one of the cars that responded to the Harris Mill Junction shootout scene. And this one I recently got. I got this because if you all remember a scene in the film right after Devereaux hijacks the Silver Streak, there's a police cruiser that is chasing them out of the yard on the road that runs parallel to the track. And it's painted up exactly like this. Except I think that car was a Chevy Impala. This is a Dodge Coronet, I believe. But when I saw that paint scheme on there, I was like, oh yeah, I have to get this because it looks pretty dang close to the one in the film. Lastly, I want to show you this. Of course, you all recognize this as the crash sequence at the end of the film. Now, I did make a video on this in 2020, but like the first video I made in 2019, this is not the original diorama. I actually went ahead and redid that again too. I threw away the original base that I had because when I started over, this new shell that I have here, this is not the original shell, would not fit, so I had to start over again. So since my locomotives are Atlas engines, I wanted to, in my mind, envision that, well, if this train wrecked, it should be another Atlas locomotive because it should look like the ones I'm running on the layout. And the one I had sitting on here was a bit shorter in length, and it didn't really look like the ones, the Atlas ones that I have. So I went ahead and bought an Atlas locomotive shell, painted it up red, put the AMRoad decals on it because I had a couple spares from a couple times of doing this. Weathered it, glued rocks to it, and I built a new base. And this time I added people figures to look at the engine and stare at it as it appears at the end of the film. I also added some broken pieces of wood there, there's balsa wood there to represent the broken display that the little yellow Fiat sat on. I couldn't find another big display to build that, so I just went ahead and chose that to represent the old base. But this looks pretty dang cool. And it matches my engines exactly, so if you were to compare them, you could definitely say this could have the appearance of what it would look like. I did add some weathering dust to give this a bit more of a roughed up appearance, to break out the little accentuated scratches and damaging bits that I've added to this. But I think the way this looks, I think this turned out even better than the original one that I made. Like the other Atlas engines I mentioned I don't have anymore, I also did sell my original wrecked Silver Streak engine. I did sell that too, and somebody put that on their layout at home. So I hope that, and if those of you who are watching this, and if you're the ones that bought the engines in my cars, I hope you're very happy with what you got. It's so fun doing this, and it's so fun to sell these to people too, because these aren't something you see. So it's always happy to see them go off to someone who's going to enjoy it, and that's just awesome. Well, we've reached the end of the video, so here's a quick little brief overview of everything that I've shown. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I hope you liked watching it. I will actually be doing a brief little short video coming up soon. I don't know when exactly I'm going to do it, but I'm going to set this train up, and I'm going to show you guys a brief video of it running on a living room floor. And I'll have the whole train set up so you can see it in action, all put together. So that should be up sometime soon. I don't know when, but I'm eventually going to do it. So until then, take care, guys.